Her message hit me while I was transferring money into her account. The notification buzzed as I was authorizing a $700 transfer from our joint account. Her travel budget, she called it. Darcy. Hey, I've been thinking. I want us to open up and try someone new. Just for now. No drama. Red heart. For a second, I thought she sent it to the wrong person. Then I saw the emoji. The heart. She meant it. She meant it. I didn't even finish the transaction. I stared at the screen so long the banking app logged me out. My hands started shaking. My thumb hovered over the reply button, but nothing came out. She was in Palm Springs, supposedly at a yoga retreat. Said she needed clarity. Said it was for us. I even packed her crystals in a velvet pouch like an idiot. She kissed me on the cheek before leaving and said, "Trust me." And now, 3 days in, she sends that? Not even a call. Not even a real conversation. She wanted someone new. But casually. Lovingly. Like asking to try oat milk. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just sat on the kitchen floor, leaning against the fridge, staring at the pale blue cabinets she insisted we repaint last winter. Then I laughed. One of those weird, breathless laughs that doesn't feel like it belongs to you. I laughed so hard it echoed in the room. The dog barked from the living room. That's when it hit me. I still had that photo. It wasn't inappropriate. Not technically. Just a moment. A memory. From 3 months ago, when her younger sister Harper stopped by while Darcy was cleansing in silence for a week and ignoring her phone. Harper had brought over soup. We talked for hours. Nothing happened. But the way she looked at me, it stayed in the back of my mind. So I pulled up that photo. Harper in my kitchen, barefoot, holding my mug, smirking like she knew something the rest of the world didn't. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back. Agreed. I've already tried your sister. And I hit send. No filter. No explanation. No turning back. I figured she'd block me. Or call. Or scream. But she didn't do any of those things. Instead, she replied 2 hours later with a voice note. I couldn't bring myself to play it. I just watched it sit there, blue icon blinking, like it was waiting for my permission to detonate my entire life. But it was her next message that did it. You crossed a line. I'll handle this my way. And that scared me. Because Darcy doesn't bluff. She destroys. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I laid there in bed, eyes open in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan like it held the answers to the mess I'd just set in motion. Her voice note sat unopened on my phone, pulsing like a landmine I refused to touch. I knew what it would be. Some cocktail of fake calm and controlled rage, the kind Darcy had perfected. She never yelled. She delivered destruction in lowercase. And always with a smile. But I wasn't ready for what came next. At exactly 6:12 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A new notification. From Harper. Not Darcy. Harper. What the hell did you do? No context. No emoji. Just pure alarm. I replied right away. She told me to try someone new. There was a pause. I could see the typing bubbles come and go. Then she sent a screenshot. It was a group chat. Between Darcy, Crystal, her friend, and someone named Becca I didn't recognize. The screenshot only showed the last few lines, but it was enough to boil my blood. Crystal, girl, if he flips, we've got receipts. Darcy, exactly. He doesn't know half of it. Let him panic a little. Becca, you seriously gonna tell him about Seattle? Darcy, not unless he makes me. Seattle? Receipts? I felt like I was reading a conversation between predators discussing their next meal. And I was the meal. That stupid voice note. I opened it. Darcy's voice was calm. Soft, even. That fake sweetness that used to melt me now made my skin crawl. Dean, I don't know why you try to hurt me like that. What you did, it's unforgivable. But don't worry, I won't stoop to your level. Let's keep this clean. Mature. I just need space now. And I've already spoken to someone about the finances. We'll work through this. Spoken to someone? The finances? I wasn't just being opened up on. I was being gutted. I logged into our joint account. She had already moved half the funds. All of it sent to a brand new personal account I'd never seen before. No warning. No discussion. I called the bank. Too late. Apparently, she'd been preparing this transfer for weeks. She had my signature. My ID copy. A power of attorney form I vaguely remembered signing during a refinance meeting months ago. I felt sick. Actually sick. My stomach turned so violently I had to lean over the sink. And through the haze of nausea, one thought screamed louder than anything else. Seattle. I opened our shared calendar and scrolled back. Sure enough, Darcy had a client conference in Seattle 6 months ago. 3 nights. She said she was speaking on a wellness panel. She even asked me to feed the neighbor's cat while she was gone. Suddenly, I remembered something. Her phone kept buzzing that weekend, at weird hours. She said it was hotel staff. Then she shut her phone off entirely. I called Harper. She picked up instantly. Her voice was sharp. What's going on? I need to ask you something, I said. Back when Darcy went to Seattle, was that really for work? The silence that followed was too long to be innocent. I don't know all the details, Harper finally said, voice low. But I know she wasn't alone. She paused, then added, and I think he might be married. Everything cracked open. Darcy had flipped the narrative on me in a single night. She wanted to open up. That was just her way of dragging me into the chaos she'd already created after she'd been doing it in secret. And now that I'd responded with one photo and one petty line, she wanted to call it my betrayal. But I wasn't going to roll over and play the fool. I was going to find out who this man from Seattle was, what they were hiding, and why Darcy had been collecting receipts on me like she was preparing a lawsuit instead of a breakup. This wasn't an ending. It was a setup, and I had just started digging. I don't know how long I sat at my desk, rereading Harper's words like they were some kind of ancient prophecy I had to decode. She wasn't alone. He might be married. That was it. No name, no photo, just a vague truth bomb and a trail of ash. But it was enough. I opened Darcy's old laptop. She thought it was broken. That's what she told me months ago when she upgraded and said she was going to recycle this one. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe I didn't trust her even then. Or maybe I was just too lazy to drop it off at the electronics bin at Staples. Either way, it still booted up, and she had never wiped it. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But after everything, what was left to protect? My dignity. She'd already used that as a doormat. It didn't take long. Inside her downloads folder was a single PDF, lazily titled Agenda Spring. PDF. But when I opened it, it wasn't an agenda. It was a hotel receipt from the Seattle trip. 2 guests, 1 room, 3 nights, charged to a corporate card that didn't belong to her. And the name was right there, Elliot Trammell. I Googled him, found his LinkedIn in 5 seconds. VP of Product Development at some wellness tech startup called Solglow. Married, 2 kids, lived in Oregon. The rage hit me so hard I nearly shattered the mouse in my hand. My wife had spent 3 nights in Seattle with a married man who probably gave her matching bathrobes and reusable bamboo toothbrushes. And now she was building a paper trail to make me look like the guilty one. But here's the twist. The next move wasn't mine. It was his wife's. Her name was Dana Trammell. And she emailed me. No warning. Just a subject line that made my heart stop. I think we need to talk. Dana. I opened it. Hi, Dean. I don't know you, but I know your wife. I think you know mine. I've kept quiet out of fear, but I'm done being quiet. Call me. There was a phone number. Oregon area code. I stared at it like it was a detonator. And then I called. Dana answered after the second ring. Her voice was colder than mine had ever been, like a person who had already done the screaming and was now in the surgical revenge stage. Darcy lied to both of us, she said flatly. But I have proof. Messages. Photos. Even an audio recording. I've been saving it, waiting to see how far she'd go. I swallowed hard. She's building a case against me. I know, Dana said. She told Elliot you were unstable, controlling, that she was afraid of you. I couldn't speak. My throat closed up. That word, afraid, wasn't just dangerous. It was nuclear. Dana continued. She made up a whole narrative. Said you checked her phone, yelled at her in public. Even said you stalked her sister. What? Yeah, Harper. She claimed you tried something with her and Darcy had to cover for you. It all clicked. The receipts. The group chat. Seattle. It was never about opening up. It was about covering tracks. Darcy had been orchestrating this for months, setting the stage so if things ever blew up, she could flip the script and play the wounded wife. But what she didn't count on, Dana hating her just a little more than she feared her. I'm forwarding you everything, Dana said calmly. And Dean, if she tries to press anything legal, you let me know. She doesn't want what I've got made public. Trust me. I hung up the phone and just sat there, numb. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was war. And Darcy had fired the first shot. But I wasn't dodging bullets anymore. I was loading my own. Dana didn't waste time. 10 minutes after we hung up, My inbox pinged with an email titled, "Insurance, in case she tries something." It had 6 attachments. 3 were screenshots. One was a screen recording. Another was a voice memo. The last, a photo of Elliot and Darcy, arms around each other, in robes, standing on a balcony with the Space Needle behind them. Not subtle, not platonic, and definitely not business. But it was the voice memo that made my stomach twist. Dana had secretly recorded a conversation between her and Elliot the day after he returned from Seattle. He'd admitted it. Everything. Not just the affair, the plan. She said she needed to make her husband look unstable, that he wouldn't leave otherwise. "And you agreed to that?" Dana had asked him. She said she was just protecting us both. She said she'd take care of it. Take care of it. She wasn't just cheating. She was rewriting the narrative, turning me into the villain so she could keep her spiritual image squeaky clean. And now that she'd seen my message, the one about Harper, she probably saw it as the final push. The evidence she needed to finish the story she'd been authoring in secret. I spent the rest of the day printing everything. Email chains, screenshots, the full transcript of the voice memo. I wasn't going to be blindsided again. If Darcy was planning to go nuclear, I was going to beat her to the button. But then, something happened that made every file, every voice note, every pixel of proof feel small. It happened at 2:46 a.m. I woke up to a noise. A faint clink. Not like a knock. More like metal against glass. At first, I thought maybe I imagined it. My brain was overloaded. Maybe it was the fridge. Maybe the dog. But then I heard it again, closer. Metal tapping glass. I crept out of bed, heart pounding, and moved toward the living room. And there he was. A man. Inside my house. I froze. He was standing near the back patio door, half-shadowed, hoodie up, one hand in his jacket pocket. I couldn't see his face. Just his silhouette. Calm. Still. "Get out," I said, voice shaking. He didn't move. "Get out," I yelled louder. Then, without a word, he turned and slipped back out the sliding door like a ghost. I stood there frozen, every part of me screaming to chase him. But something told me not to. Something told me this wasn't random. And I was right. On the floor, right where he'd been standing, was a single piece of paper. I picked it up. No envelope. No signature. Just one line handwritten in all caps. "You want to play this game? Then let's really play." That's when I called Harper. Not the cops. Not Dana. Harper. She answered groggily, voice thick with sleep. "Dean? What's wrong?" I told her everything. Her breath caught. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Dean, I think I know who that was." "Who?" "Darcy's ex. Before you. Before college. She said he was dangerous once. Controlling. But she also said she never really let him go." "Why would he be here?" "Because she always said he was the only one who'd do anything for her." My mind started spinning. This wasn't just infidelity anymore. This wasn't even just manipulation. This was weaponized loyalty. Darcy had someone else in play. A man she could sick on me from the shadows. Someone who wouldn't hesitate to break into my home in the middle of the night just to send a message. And I suddenly realized something terrifying. She hadn't lost control of her plan. She was expanding it. And Harper? She was now part of it whether she wanted to be or not. Harper showed up less than 30 minutes after I called her. Hair pulled back, still in sweatpants. Oversized hoodie with the sleeves half chewed. She looked shaken but also angry in a way I hadn't seen before. Not at me. At something bigger. Something that had clearly been building inside her long before this week. The second she walked in, I locked the door behind her. I didn't want to explain again what I saw. I just handed her the note the man left. She read it once, then again, then sat on the edge of my couch and whispered, "This isn't over. She's just getting warmed up." I sat down across from her. "Tell me about this guy." "Darcy's ex." Harper looked up at me, eyes wide with hesitation. "I only met him once. His name's Rowan. He was older, maybe by 10 years. Darcy was still in high school. He wasn't. Their mom tried to end it, but Darcy lied and said she loved him. She kept seeing him even after she started college. And then something happened," Harper said. "She came home one night shaking, with blood on her sleeve. She said she cut herself, but I always thought it was his. She refused to talk about it. Next week, she had a new boyfriend. You." I rubbed my hands over my face. "And you never said anything?" "I was 15, she snapped. What was I supposed to do? Darcy ran that house. Our mom wouldn't question her. And then years passed. and she never mentioned him again. Not once. Until last year. I froze. Last year? Harper nodded. She said he reached out. That he found her on some meditation app or blog or something. She said he was reformed. Spiritual now. That they were just catching up as old souls. I stared at her, stunned. And you believe that? No, Harper said softly. But I wanted to. Because I thought if she finally found closure, maybe she'd stop messing with people. Maybe she'd stop dragging me into her chaos. I couldn't even respond. The room felt like it was caving in. Darcy wasn't just manipulative. She was recruiting old ghosts to do her dirty work. And I was sleeping in the center of her minefield. Harper shifted uncomfortably. There's something else I never told you. I looked at her, exhausted. What? She asked me to lie for her once. When? 6 months ago. Right before her Seattle trip. She said if anyone asked, I was with her that weekend. That we had a sister's retreat. She even gave me a full itinerary to memorize. I stared at her, stunned. And you agreed? I didn't think she'd actually do anything. Harper snapped. I thought it was just a decoy to get out of some event you were dragging her to. I didn't know she was flying across the country to meet a married man. Before I could respond, Harper's phone buzzed. Once. Then again. Then a third time. She looked down, and I saw her face go pale. What? I asked. She didn't answer. She just slowly turned the screen toward me. The messages were from an unknown number. No name. No profile photo. But the texts made my blood run cold. You're next, Harper. You chose the wrong side. Want me to remind you what happened the last time you crossed her? Meet me, or he finds out everything. She dropped the phone like it burned her. I picked it up and reread the messages. Then I noticed something. The last one. He finds out everything. Who's he? I asked quietly. Harper shook her head slowly. I don't know. But she was lying. I knew that look. It was the same one Darcy wore when she was caught, but hadn't figured out the next play yet. I leaned forward. Harper, what's going on? She finally looked at me. There's something I never told you. About me. About us. My heart dropped. What do you mean? And that's when she said it. Words that would rip open every fragile belief I still held about the last 6 years of my life. You weren't the only one Darcy wanted to destroy. You were just the easiest. The air in the room changed. Suddenly, I wasn't just a husband fighting to clear his name. I was a piece in someone else's game. And I had no idea how deep the board went. There's a specific silence that comes after someone tells you your entire life has been manipulated, and you know they're not lying. It's not shock. It's not rage. It's hollow, like being inside a room where the walls have been removed, but you're still sitting on the same chair, pretending gravity works the same. That's what I felt when Harper looked me in the eyes and said Darcy hadn't just targeted me, that she had a pattern, a history, one that started years before I even knew her name. She sat across from me, hands clenched, bouncing her knee like her nerves were fighting to escape her skin. Do you remember your first year dating her? She asked. I nodded slowly. Barely. I was working full-time. She was still finishing her degree. She told you her dad died when she was 13, right? Yeah. Cancer. Some rare thing. It came up once. She didn't like to talk about it. Harper let out a dry, humorless laugh. He didn't die of cancer. He's not even dead. That pulled me forward like a hook in the chest. What? She made it up, Harper said, staring at the floor. He's alive. Lives in Portland. They don't speak, but not because he died. Because he left. And Darcy couldn't handle it. So she rewrote the story. And it didn't stop there. I didn't want to ask. I didn't want to know. But I did anyway. What else did she lie about? Harper's eyes met mine. Her job interviews. Her panic attacks. Her infertility. I blinked. Wait, what? She told you she couldn't have kids, right? That she was still processing? I nodded. That had been a huge part of our marriage's downward spiral. We tried. We waited. She shut down. She never got tested, Harper said. She told me last year she never wanted to be a mother. That she just said all that because she knew if you thought it was a medical thing, you'd stay longer. I stood up too fast. My legs almost gave out. My heart was hammering in my chest so loud I couldn't hear anything else. Why are you telling me this now? Harper's voice cracked. Because I didn't think it would go this far. I didn't think she'd bring him back. I thought she'd cheat, manipulate, maybe lie. But this is something else. This is personal. I didn't get to ask what this meant. Because that's when the doorbell rang. It was 8:43 p.m. The porch light was off. My phone hadn't buzzed. No one texted. Harper looked at me, suddenly alert, and stepped back into the hallway. I opened the door slowly. No one was there. Just a single, thin envelope sitting on the welcome mat. It didn't have a stamp. No address. No name on the front. Just my initials in small, slanted handwriting. D.S. I picked it up, heart pounding. Inside was one sheet of paper. A single sentence, typed in bold. If she goes down, you go with her. No signature. No contact. Just that. I turned it over. On the back was something else. A printed screenshot from what looked like a draft email, addressed to Darcy's lawyer. It accused me of emotional sabotage, verbal manipulation, and suggested I had accessed private accounts in violation of agreed trust terms. It was a preemptive strike. Darcy wasn't waiting to see what I'd do. She was laying the trap, and this time, she wasn't hiding it. Harper stared at the page, then looked at me. She's trying to make you look like a cyberstalker. Or worse. She'll say I broke into her laptop, I muttered. She'll say you threatened her. And the photo I sent, she'll twist it into harassment. Emotional blackmail. I dropped the envelope on the kitchen table and sat down, breathing heavily. I don't know who that guy was who came here, I said. But it wasn't just to scare me. It was to give her time, to push me into reacting. Harper nodded. Or to bait you into doing something dumb. I looked up at her. Is this the part where you tell me I still have a choice? No, she whispered. This is the part where you realize she never gave you one. We sat in silence for a long time. And then Harper got a phone call. She picked it up, and I watched the color drain from her face. She didn't even say hello. Just listened. Then hung up. What is it? I asked. Her voice was barely audible. That was from someone I haven't heard from in years. Darcy's old roommate. And she says Darcy's been talking to a private investigator. Someone who's been asking questions. About you. About me. My blood turned to ice. She's building a case, I whispered. Harper nodded. Or a trap. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to believe until then. This wasn't about ending the marriage. Darcy didn't want freedom. She wanted destruction. And she was already halfway there. Harper had a theory. She said Darcy had always been two people. The one everyone saw, and the one who quietly collected leverage. Not revenge, not insurance, leverage. Like she thought life was a poker game, and she could never afford to be dealt a bad hand unless she already had something hidden up her sleeve. It wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. And that's how we found ourselves standing outside a storage facility an hour outside the city, staring at a rust-colored unit with a dented steel roll-up door and a padlock that had clearly been replaced recently. Harper had remembered it from years ago. Said Darcy had rented it in her name before she moved in with me, but never mentioned what was inside. I didn't believe her until she found the email with the access code. We broke in at 11:43 p.m. It was dead silent. One overhead bulb flickered to life after a second delay, bathing the small space in a sickly yellow glow. There wasn't much. A few plastic tubs, 2 cardboard boxes, an old futon frame, a broken standing lamp. But it wasn't the furniture that made my heart stop. It was the file box. The only thing perfectly sealed and labeled. Charcoal. That word meant nothing to me. Until Harper whispered. That was her code word. For what? For stuff she didn't want anyone else to know. She used to call her burner folders charcoal files. Said if anything ever got exposed, she wanted the rest to burn with it. I opened the lid. Inside was a stack of labeled envelopes, each marked with a single name and year. One of them said Dean, 2019. I opened it. My hands were trembling. Inside were 6 printed photographs, all time-stamped. Me. In my office. At the gym. At the grocery store. One of me sitting alone in a diner, looking down at my phone, completely unaware someone was watching me through the window. I flipped them over. Notes scribbled in pen. Still unaware. Watches cashier. Takes the same route each Thursday. Leaves phone on the table. Spoke to coworker, female. It was surveillance. Of me. Years ago. Before we were even married. Harper looked over my shoulder. She was tracking you before the wedding. Why? I don't know. Maybe she thought you'd cheat. Or maybe she needed a backup plan in case she wanted to make it look like you did. I found another envelope. Mother, 2016. Inside, a copy of a medical report. Her mom's psych evaluation. Severe anxiety. A history of hospitalization. A list of prescriptions I didn't recognize. And in the corner, underlined twice, unfit to testify in court. I felt like I was staring at a crime scene. But this wasn't a storage unit. This was her arsenal. There was a file on Harper, too. Harper tried to grab it, but I stopped her. Don't. You'll never unsee it. She hesitated, then nodded. Let's burn it. All of it. No, I said quietly. Not yet. Because as twisted as it was, these files were my only protection now. If Darcy was preparing to blow up my life, this was the one match she couldn't afford me to light. I pocketed the envelope with my name on it. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, breath shallow. Hello. A man's voice. Low. Steady. Dangerous. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. He didn't identify himself, but I knew it was Rowan. And then he said something that froze the air in my lungs. She gave me permission to clean up the mess. And she says you're the mess. Click. The line went dead. I stood there frozen. The walls felt like they were shrinking. Harper whispered, "What did he say?" I turned to her. He's not bluffing. We left the storage unit without locking it. We drove in silence. But halfway back to the city, Harper turned to me and said, "There's one person left. Someone she's always been afraid of. Someone who knows more than anyone else." Who? Harper hesitated. Our aunt, Lorraine. I didn't know you had an aunt. No one does. She lives off-grid in Wisconsin. Darcy cut her off 10 years ago. Said she was toxic. But I think it's because she knew too much. Too much about what? Harper looked at me, eyes wide and serious. About how Darcy became this way, and what really happened with Rowan the first time. I didn't respond, because I suddenly realized Darcy didn't build this story overnight. She'd been writing it for years. I'd just been reading the wrong chapter. We found Lorraine 2 days later. A cabin in the woods. Real, literal woods. Not the cute Airbnb kind with fairy lights and succulents. This place had cracked shutters, a dented mailbox that leaned like it was drunk, and a dog that didn't bark but stared like it was judging your intentions. Harper hadn't spoken a word the entire drive. I knocked. 3 times. The door opened without a sound. Lorraine stood there in a thick sweater, long gray braid draped over one shoulder, eyes sharper than I expected from someone who lived without cell service. She looked at Harper, then at me. "Took you long enough," she said, and stepped aside. No pleasantries. No hugs. Just a fire already going, and a kitchen table covered in newspaper clippings. She knew we were coming. And what she told us unraveled the last thread of mystery Darcy had left hanging in our lives. Darcy always needed control, Lorraine said. Even when she was 8. If she couldn't win, she'd rewrite the game. If she couldn't rewrite it, she'd flip the board. She explained how Darcy watched their father manipulate people, lie without blinking, cheat without consequence. Darcy didn't run from that, Lorraine said. She studied it. When Rowan came into her life, Darcy was 16. He wasn't just toxic, Lorraine said. He was dangerous. But Darcy liked that. Not because she loved him, but because she knew how to use him. What happened between them? I asked. She staged something, Lorraine replied. Told people he hurt her. But it was never proven. Charges disappeared. But after that, people looked at her different. She learned how to build stories that protected her and destroy anyone who challenged them. I asked her how she knew all this. Because she did it to me, Lorraine said. I caught her stealing money from her mom's savings. Told her I'd go to the police. Next week, I was cut off. She told everyone I was unstable, violent. I lost my job over it. Moved out here. Harper's eyes filled with tears. But I kept everything, Lorraine added. Just in case someone like you ever showed up. She slid a folder across the table. Inside were old letters, financial documents, photos, even a signed confession from a roommate Darcy had bullied into silence back in college. Enough to dismantle the story Darcy had been crafting for years. Enough to stop her. We left the cabin before nightfall. I thought we'd go straight to the lawyer. But when I got home, the door was unlocked. Harper froze. You locked it this time, right? I nodded. My stomach turned cold. We stepped inside. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was trashed. But there, on the kitchen island, was another envelope. One line, written in that same jagged handwriting. Final offer. Sign the divorce quietly. Or lose everything. Harper grabbed the envelope and tossed it straight into the fireplace. We didn't need it. We had something stronger now, proof. The next morning, I met with a lawyer. Showed him everything. Dana's evidence, Lorraine's files, the emails, the surveillance photos. He didn't blink. He just leaned back and said, "She's going to panic when she sees this." Good. She did. Darcy's tone shifted within days. Gone was the self-righteous fury. Her texts became shorter, then apologetic, then desperate. Maybe we were both wrong. I don't want to fight anymore. Let's just agree to move on with grace. But by then, it was too late. I had already moved on. I signed the divorce papers with a full clause. No defamation, no false claims, no further contact. Everything backed by the lawyer, every line notarized, every lie collapsed under the weight of her own designs. She didn't attend the final court hearing, but Harper did. She sat next to me in the hallway afterward. Quiet, calm, like we both finally stepped out of someone else's maze. "I can't believe it's over," I said. Harper smiled faintly. "No, it's not." I turned to her. "It's not over," she repeated, softer this time. "But it's the first time you're writing your own story." We got in the car, drove with the windows down. For the first time in years, the silence between us wasn't heavy. It was peace. Later that week, I packed up the last of my things and left the house. I didn't take much. Just my clothes, my books, and one photograph. Me and Harper, sitting on the back steps, the day after everything ended. Not as revenge, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that sometimes the person who betrays you the worst doesn't win. Sometimes they teach you exactly who not to become. And that's worth surviving.